our Kenyan leaders, look at our social media. And I think I've also seen, and also I want to give a big shout out to Bonnie for having the fortitude to do the work that they're doing, that you're doing to ensure that this is, because it is exhausting to just be able to write every single day and see what's going on and yet be told that, well, whatever, because that is really what we're getting. And that it has also led to the detachment by citizens to stop trying to address what ails Kenyans. And for that reason, I think many Kenyans were so happy when we saw the young people coming out to the streets because I said enough is enough. They went out to shout and say, we can do better. We want to do better. We must do better. They want to reclaim their country. And the robust action that was taken by these people was important. We saw a bit of action. Oh, we saw the withdrawal of, the finance bill. But we've also seen it coming back. And the question we're asking is, why is it that all that effort and all the sacrifice that made has meant nothing to Kenyans? And this is the reason why I'm talking about this bragging that they have, you just wait, you shall see. Or even if, what will you do? It is every single day that we get to be able to hear that, to see that, the lack of values, the fact that we're using, ethnic politics to be able to divide, so that even when we are trying to speak out because our watchdog organizations are not doing anything, we then have fellow Kenyans, unfortunately, telling us, shut up, and then trying to create a whataboutism and saying you will all just peter off and die. When I speak to a number of Kenyans that I work with, and I meet every single day, they tell me how they're struggling to make ends meet, how they cannot even put food on the table. They're not able to meet their parental obligations. I think there's so many of us who know of people, of parents, who make a choice about who they're going to take to school. They make a choice about who is going to eat what on what day. They're either dodging their landlords because they cannot afford to pay their rent and they have defaulted. They're unable to pay electricity bills. And all this is compounded. And yet every single day, we have to deal with scandal after scandal after scandal. Huge sums of money that some of us are unable to know how to count. And it happens. And there's no action whatsoever from our elected leaders who are watchdog, from the institutions who are being paid and taxed with the responsibility. And there are 15 independent offices. 15. And there's nothing. So you have the National Police Authority not able to rein in the police when they're misbehaving. You have the ESCC just looking and passing by, even as the auditor reports are being given. You have the Commission on Administration of Justice, who never spoke, uttered, was not present at the point when young people were being arrested and being charged with false, charges on their charge sheet, never came out. You have got Teacher Service Commission who are not uttering a word, yet we're being told that there are schools that are getting money and they do not even exist. The response, the lack of response is something that we should all rebuke. But we must be able to speak up and tell them. If they cannot do the work that they're meant to do, we have to get rid of the people who are there and demand that we have the right people who are able to do this. So Kenyans now, for me, Gen Z started a conversation. They started a movement. They started an action. But they need backup. And we need to apply different strategies. We need to be able to rise up and say we're done. Because we were there in July when Kenyans said they were done. And they acted collectively with one voice and one purpose. But all that was chilled into silence because of what people were experiencing. But we didn't come out as Kenyans to be able to give backup, to be able to speak out, to be able to defend, to be able to protect, to be able to go on the street and also be counted as one, or to do things that were important, because Kenyans now are the only oversight or watchdog institutions that we have. So we need to be able to back each other up. We need to be able to say that we cannot have rejected a finance bill and now we're being told it's being brought back. And the reason why it's being brought back is because we have bills, we have debts to pay. And nobody has been able to explain to Kenyans how much, when it was borrowed, what it was borrowed for, where it has worked. We are yet to recover from the staggering billions that we're losing in corruption. And now we're being told that we're going to bring it back and increase the same taxes that we were refusing. I worry that this time, when Kenya, our house Kenya, was on fire, and Kenyans built out this time, I'm not sure we'll be able to get back. But we as Kenyans need to be able to prepare, because if we do not speak out, we end up being the only ones who suffer. The others are comfortable, and I think we have seen the massive amounts of money that they are earning. I mean, this insane greed this insatiable greed to be able to amass tons and tons of money is something that continues to mind boggle everybody. And, thank God, Bonnie has been able to break it down in languages that we can all see. But apart from that, Kebaso is telling us, hello, you think that the scandal is only in the reports? The scandal is actually in the physical absence of things that are being done and yet being quoted to have finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Betty. And thank you for that as well. Remember, everyone, as we're talking about all these things, for example, right now, the conversation that, is alive in the country is on education and access to education for everybody, right? So we keep saying every year that the huge chunk of our budget goes towards funding education, directly over 600 billion shillings. Indirectly, there's a lot more. 30% of CDF is going into education in terms of bursaries. There's bursaries from the Ministry of Health, of Education, bursaries from the presidency. And now the conversation is all this money actually making sense if the people who need to have access to education, which is all children of the Republic of Kenya, are all struggling to get access to education in one way or the other? Is it helping us or is it not? It's time for us to bring in our big speakers for tonight. I'm going to start with Bonnie. And Bonnie, I know you have another call that you need to pick in about 20 or so minutes. So I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes so that you start off. We've seen the work that you've been doing, Bonnie. You have decided to take up the issue of accountability at county level and looking at how our money is being spent at the county level. First, I want you to tell us who Bonnie is, what you do, and why you decided to do this. And then I'll ask you the next questions of what happens. Just, it's good for us to know who is this Bonnie Mwangi who's been doing all these conversations. We know another Bonnie Mwangi.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Awesome. So thanks for the opportunity, Eric, and thanks everyone for joining this discussion, which is coming at a very important time for our country. So my name is Bonnie Mwangi, born and raised in Kenya. Although I've spent a lot of my life in the US and Canada, I left Kenya as a teenager and came to the US, trained as an economist, studied law, and I work as an economist. And so the reason why I started looking at some of these things is, as an economist, I look at where our country is right now, look at our potential, and I see a gap. And so I started looking at how we are spending money in Kenya to see if I can identify what seems to be the issue. So let me just start off by making a few remarks, and then I can take your questions, Eric. So the first thing I want to mention is that as a country, today we are sitting on almost 11 trillion shillings in debt. So 11 trillion. Much of this debt was accumulated over the last 10 years. So if you think about our country, since independence to about 2013, we never had debt. I'm talking about national debt that was more than 2 trillion. So think about all the development that you saw during the Kibaki years. All of that stuff never had more than 2 trillion in debt. So we got our new system of government, and since 2014 to today, 10 years, we've accumulated 9 trillion additional. So we're sitting on almost 11 trillion worth of debt. And because of this debt buildup, today our country is having to spend 60% of every shilling that comes in through taxation just to pay interest. Not the principal, just interest. So just think about what that means, right? Before we spend money on national security, before we spend money on education, before we decide how much to spend on healthcare, 60% goes out the window to pay interest. So just think about the missed opportunities as a country in terms of our ability to improve our lives, in terms of our ability to invest in infrastructure, in the future of our children, right? That's the natural consequence of fiscal indiscipline. And if you look at the last 10 years, since we've got this new system of government, We are running budget deficits to the tune of 1 trillion every year, 1 trillion shillings every year. And so, just think about where we are as a country right now. As much as we are unhappy with our situation, if we don't change directions, just think about where we are right now. We're sitting almost 11 trillion in debt. Just look forward 10 years from now, right? We keep adding a trillion in debt. We're going to wake up with 22, 23 trillion shillings in debt in the near future. I don't think any of us wants to be in that kind of a situation. And that's why we need to have this discussion today. The next point I want to make sure that I point out is that as a country, you know, we wanted devolution because we wanted to bring accountability to the local regions. We wanted to bring development. We wanted to bring services and accountability locally. So we are spending 400 billions annually, sending that money to the county. Again, I point out that because of our fiscal discipline, 100% of that money that we're sending to the counties is actually money that we are borrowing. We don't have it, right? We issue them a credit card. And so if we're going to do that, particularly if you're going to spend money that we don't have, I think it behooves us as a people to ask whether we are achieving the objectives of devolution. Are we making progress, right? And then, as someone who spent a lot of time looking at some of these matters of the last year or two, I can tell you today that we are not doing what we should be doing. We are not improving lives. We are not serving the people. We are not solving problems. We are not bringing services to our communities. And so I think the questions that I will challenge all of us to ask ourselves are the following. One, is our structure of government necessary and sustainable? Do we need it? And can we sustain it? And I think the answer to me is an emphatic no. And here's why. I just told you how much money we have today in debt, right? We are spending 60% of every shilling that comes in through taxation just to pay interest. We are sitting on 11 trillion worth of debt. We just can't afford it. Even if the structure was serving us, we can't afford it. So we have to make changes today. Second thing is, only in Kenya do we feel the need to have this many people representing us, right? I live in Texas. Many of you, I'm sure, know that. And so I'm going to ask you to allow me to use Texas as an example, right? Texas as an economy, or has an economy that's 21 times bigger than Kenya, right? 2.3 trillion USD is the economy of Texas. Our economy in Kenya is about 110 billion. In fact, the city that I live in, Dallas, one city has an economy that's 1.5 times bigger than Kenya. So just think about that. A city like Dallas has an economy that's 1.5 times the size of the Kenyan economy. But if you look at representation in parliament, it's a very different picture. With that size of an economy, Texas has about 180 people in the parliament, 30 in the Senate, about 150 in the House. So that's 180. Look at us in Kenya. We have 290 MPs. We've got 47 senators. We've got 47 women reps. We've got governors. And then we have 1,450 MCAs. Why do we feel like that's necessary? What is the point of it? And so I believe that we don't need that many people representing us. We cannot afford it. We need to make changes. Second point I want to point out is the following. Our politicians in our system are eating up the vast majority of resources. And so this is what I mean. If you look at compensation for politicians globally, our Kenyan politicians are the second highest paid in the world. Second highest. When you consider the size of our GDP, that's higher than the US, higher than the Netherlands, higher than Canada, higher than the UK, Switzerland, Germany, and on and on and on. Why are we doing this? What is the justification? Why do we need to pay someone more money than a senator makes in the US? Right? It makes no sense. We are a country that cannot afford this kind of fiscal indiscipline. Next point I want to point out is this. If the idea of devolution is to bring accountability and services to the people locally, and if the idea is to bring development, right? If I take a county like Migori and say they have a budget of 9 billion, okay, well and good. But when the money gets to the ground, what we are finding out is that the county assembly on its own is probably going to take 1 billion of that money. That's the budget for the county assembly. Then the executive office, the governor, they're going to take 1.5 or 2 billion. So now you've got 30% of the budget is gone just those two line items, right? Then you find out that the rest of the money, the rest of the amount that's left, 50% of it is going to salaries, and then probably 25 on ridiculous amount of allowances. I have never seen such kind of allowances, responsibility allowance, tuition allowance, risk allowance. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We cannot afford it. And so when you really dig down and say, okay, we sent 9 billion to Migori, how much actually ended up serving someone? How much was actually used to serve someone? Very little. Very little. Um, I'll give you an example. A county like Migori, they have a budget of 9 billion every year. Can you believe that that county spent 1 billion in 1 year on domestic travel? How is that possible? In a small country like Migori, how do you spend a billion on domestic travel? And then um, when you look at that country's ability to support itself, it's what we call own service revenue, right? The idea of sending this money to these countries is that you're trying to equip them with what they need to put themselves in a position to attract investment, to be able to attract companies coming there, to be able to attract, skilled labor, for example. When you look at how they're spending that money, none of those objectives are being met. We are spending money on things like, for example, I was looking at some of you guys may have seen what I my post yesterday about the county of Siaya, right? They spend more money on the governor's office and the deputy governor's office. They spend more money on the county than they spend on 90% of the departments on things like education, things like healthcare, things like childhood services. They spend more money on themselves than they spend on those important services. And then they spend 10% of the budget on domestic travel, right? It's ridiculous. You can't do it, and I'm not sure why we keep doing that. Then when you look at the balance, right? The balance of money that's not eaten up by salaries. It's just disheartening to see what's going on. You have a country like Seattle that have a 34% poverty rate, right? Per capita income of about 131,000. And when you look at how they're spending the money, I know the law says that they need to spend 30% on development, and so we have to think about what actually that means, right? When we say 30%, what do we mean actually? It's not just setting aside the budget of 30%, but then when you look at how they spend the money, it's not actually development, right? Building latrines is not development. Digging boreholes is not development. Spending, like, I'll give you an example, something that really shocked me yesterday. Looking at the county of Siaya, their biggest expenditures in terms of development included, the biggest one was 160 million that was spent on fencing ward offices. That's not development. You're spending money to fence politicians' homes or offices. That's not development. They spent 150 million to build apparently halls to meet people. That's not development. Okay, and then they spent 117 million for boreholes. We are wasting everybody's time. We are wasting important resources. We just can't afford to continue like this. And so, we're having this discussion at a very important time in our country. We need to hold our politicians accountable. We need to demand better. And then for us as citizens, we need to really get involved. The time for passive citizenship is over. We just can continue hoping for the best. We have to get involved, and we have to make sure that we think about the people that we put in office. 90% of our problems, to me, can be solved by voting in the right people. Because if you put in a parliament that has people that don't know what it means to actually be a member of parliament in a constitutional democracy, they're not going to help. Our country takes 9 trillion in debt in 10 years without having shown any ability to service that debt. I'm an economist. I've spent a lot of time helping companies globally in things like financial arrangements. If you walk into my door and you tell me that you're looking to borrow $1 billion, I'm going to say, okay, I need to see your balance sheet. I need to see that you have the ability to take on this debt. I need to see that you'll be able to service the debt. How is it that our parliament does not require that of the executive branch, right? How do you raise national debt by 450% when our economy, which is a proxy for our ability to service debt, only improves by 130%, you're going to have a problem. So we need to think about the people that we're sending to parliament. We need to get involved, and we need to demand better. And so for that, I will, you know, step back and take any question I may have.
Thank you very much, Bonnie. There are a couple of comments that have come in, and then I'll ask you a question. I see. Um, will you ask about the promise on reducing the advisors and also public services who public officers who are 60 years? Information is an enabler. That's what Victor is saying. Data is power. Thanks to power of technology and Kibaki, Kenyans have access to both as information and power. Discuss on how this aspect can be utilized, just as we skipped landlines and went straight to mobile and to M-Pesa. Jacoraro says the former Treasury CS seemed to understand the problem once he left office, similar to many failed politicians. How can the Kenyan Constitution compel these people or such people to be charged for negligence? It's a good question, a good way of putting it, and a good issue being raised there. I'm going to come to you shortly, Bonnie. And the question that I want to ask you is, you raise these issues, and they're very, very good issues. And the way you actually break it down, you break it down in such a way that people can understand, people can see. When you say, for example, Migori has spent R1 billion shillings on domestic travel, and then looking at and comparing with how much money has actually gone to actual service delivery for the people, how much money has gone to hospitals that are supposed to be serving the people, or to ECDs, or to agriculture that goes directly to the people. You see, and you clearly put it out there that there is no comparison, that money is actually going to the wrong areas. What would you like to see citizens do when they consume the information that you give out to us, and others would like to participate in such? Because we're talking about raising accountability by the people. What would you like the people to do?
So I think the most important things that citizens can do is to actually make sure that they keep politicians accountable. Every bit of information that I use in doing this analysis is public information. There's nothing that I get from a whistleblower. Go to the Office of Auditor General, look up your county, look at how, look at the budgets, right? So first of all, go to your county's website, look at the budget and look at how they're spending the money. Our law basically requires these people to tell us how they're going to spend the money, and you can see enough detail to be able to see, for example, how much they're actually spending on themselves versus how much they're actually spending on services, right? You can see that. They hope you're not going to look at that, but that information is available there. Second thing is go to the Office of Auditor General, read these reports because they're issued and they're on the website, and make sure that you are communicating with the politicians and letting them know that you know what they're doing, right? Because politicians, the last thing that they want is to lose elections. They don't want to be kicked out. So the moment they see that the average citizen is thinking about how the money is being spent, the behavior is going to change. Most importantly, I think our biggest weapon that we have to solve this problem is to make sure that we vote for the right people. Again, I don't think we have an issue of having no laws in our books. We have a lot of laws, right? So it's not like we need to come up and invest, come up with new laws. They are there, but because we have thieves in office, and how can you explain, for example, a situation where, in Turkana, for example, massive looting, billions of money spent and lost, right? Under the previous governor, Governor Nanok. That individual today is working in State House. You and I are taking a salary. How is it possible that we can have that kind of a situation, right? We just saw recently the president announcing a cabinet made up of people like Oparanya, who his own EACC told him, do not touch this individual with a 10-foot pole. And the president still feels like he has enough impunity to be able to do something like that. So we need to demand better of ourselves, and we need to demand better of our citizens. And hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Bonnie. And yes, that's a good point to actually raise, that as we talk about our Katiba, as we look at our Katiba that is now a proper teenager, as Annette reminded us, 14 years of the Constitution, we need to be more active, we need to demand better, we need to be more aware of our power as citizens and the agency that citizens have. Bonnie, thank you. We'll come back to you shortly. I want to bring in Morara Kebaso. Morara is another person who's also been very, very active on these matters. Has taken it upon himself to dedicate his time, his energy, his money to go around the country and just look at projects that are on record as being implemented. They were launched, they are now going on. So, what's happening to those particular projects? How are they being implemented? Morara Kebaso, karibu sana. Thank you for speaking to us tonight. The number of projects that you have raised in this country, if I was to ask you to just summarize what you see in not one sentence, make it a paragraph. If you were to summarize what you see in a paragraph, what's the state of our development projects?
Well, in a paragraph, that Kenya is a crime. We are living in planned poverty, and these people do not advance any program or project unless they are benefiting. I've been touring the whole country trying to find those dead projects where money has been spent, but there is nothing to show for it. And I've found so many. I'm even trying to find a way of how to visit all of them because they are excessively many. Kenya is full of tombstones and abandoned graves of projects where money has been spent and there's nothing to show for it. That is despite the fact that our public funds has also been pilfered and put into personal accounts to earn interest and in money market funds. My findings are shocking. And in my episode of the Vampire Diaries tomorrow, I want is going to shock you. Should I continue, Eric?
Morara, continue. Go on.
Yeah. So now, fellow Kenyans, a time has come when we must take charge of our affairs. A time has come when we must realize that our country is being auctioned, and if we don't find a way to save it, we are going to lose it forever. We are being led by a government which I can, in the best words possible, I would describe it as a criminal enterprise of criminals well organized and creating a theater and drama for us in a way that may seem like there is something they are doing, when in actual sense there is absolutely nothing that they are doing. I'll mention for you some of the projects that I've been able to visit and what I found out there. And I'll tell you about some of which I'm yet to visit. For example, my journey began at the Devki Kinani Road, which is in Machakos. This road is 25 kilometers. It's supposed to join up to Joska. It was allocated 1.78 billion. So far, 456 million has been certified for payment. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing to show for it. There's just dust and a few culverts, more dust. And the governor of that county lives on that road. I went to Olkejuado University, which was launched by William Ruto on the 3rd of September 2020, allocated 600 million by the county government of Kajiado. Nothing but an abandoned stone. Even the name William Ruto has been stolen. I went to Ngong Sports Complex, which was allocated 198 million. The contractor has already been paid 50 million. Nothing but bushes. I interviewed some of the youth from a local club that is trying to train Ngong, and they've been trying to slash the bushes there, but it's been a very difficult job. I went to the Tuala Sholinke Road, which was allocated money by the Kenya Roads Board under the road maintenance levy. Remember, Kipchumba Murkomen said that they collected over 96 billion from the road maintenance levy. That road was allocated money. It is so bad that even the residents of that area have been contributing money from their own pocket to try and find ways of making the road for themselves. So far, in their WhatsApp group, they've contributed 371,000, and they're still contributing to try and maintain their own road. Yet they pay taxes. Yet every good that they buy has VAT, Every liter of fuel they buy as road maintenance levy. I went to Muranga, Ikumbi Karinga Kagundu Road, launched in July 2023 by President William Ruto. It was even launched twice because CS Mashari had launched it back in 2019. Despite of both launches, nothing, absolutely nothing, in a highly agriculturally productive area. In this case, in fact, it's nothing. Like I cannot even tell you of a culvert. There is hata hakuna maram. Yani, it is the. I went to where the president says in Ruiru, employing 5,000 youth on our digital economy. I found that first, the company that is there employs no more than 1,000 youth, and it's a private company called CCI, which is underpaying our youth, not giving them leave. They work under very toxic working conditions, being, showcased to us as though it's a government project, as if it's a government initiative, as if it's a station for the use of our taxes. You see, you cannot come to Morara's house. You launch my house, which I built with my money. Then you say, tumejengea vijana. Sasa tuko na mpango ingine. Tumeweka another 15 billion ya hawa mama mboga hawa. Na hawa beba. Sasa hawa wote wanaweza kukopa deni ya interest bila interest ili kujiendeleza. Sijui kama tunaelewana. Mimi nitazungumza na wewe mjumbe wenu. Hapa. Tutajenga TTI hapa. Kutakuwa na machines hapo ya hawa vijana kujifunza. Mukisikia mambo ya TTIs and vocational centers, just go to Pokot South. That is in Rift Valley where William Ruto comes from. A technical vocational center has been built using public resources and it collapsed. It fell flat on its face. Yani nyumba, gorofa, imeanguka chini, imelala kwa nyasi. And public funds have been spent millions. I went to Captain Demi, Wanjohi, Kwamatu, Geta, Kahuruko, Ndunyunjeru.
Morara,
Papa le President Ufisade.
you're slightly off mic. Yeah, now I think it's better now. Go ahead.
Okay. I went to Captain Demi, Wanjohi, Kwamatu, Kahuruko, Ndunyunjeru Road, which was launched by Papa le President de la Ufisade. He himself launched it on the 26th of November 2018. He launched it again on 6th April 2023. Nothing, and absolutely nothing to show for it. I went to Eldoret Airstrip, where politicians have planted maize and wheat on an airport. And they are using the tractor of Kenya prisons. The impunity, the audacity. I went to Kamarini Stadium, the one which is said in another 6 months, this stadium in Kamarini, which is historical, will be complete. Nothing to show for it. Nothing to show for public funds wasted. His promises amount to nothing. On the issue of stadiums, I still went to Water Stadium. Water Stadium, money spent, nothing. In Water Stadium, the contractor has already been paid 162 million Kenya shillings. 162 million. And what we have is a concrete track, some grass, and a perimeter wall. Just next to that stadium, as if it was not enough, as if they didn't get the message that they are a failure, they have now cleared the bushes and fence. They want to build affordable housing. Before I even speak of affordable housing, how affordable is the affordable housing? Affordable to who? These Kenyans are suffering. They have no jobs. Their businesses are failing. Then you are telling them that you've built for them affordable houses. A bed sitter in Kirinyaga housing program cost 1.7 million. How many Kenyans can afford a bed sitter 1.7 million, and how many will be willing to buy it in Kirinyaga? It's a dead white elephant project just meant to loot public funds. You imagine, you take money from the people, you build them houses, then you sell to the people whom you took money from. So there in Water Stadium, just next to where he wants to build housing program, you can watch my videos on X. He has another housing program that was built by Uhuru when he was the deputy president. The roof is caving in. The houses are being, they are collapsing. The walls are cracked. 20 flats. Unajua, when I talk about a flat, I mean a flat. I mean a building kutoka chini paka juu yenye kuna several units. 20 flats. All of them damaged. Now we want to build new ones. Where are our priorities? You might think that our politicians are stupid, but are they? They are not. They are professors. Some of them have done PhD. Some of them have even gone to the best schools in the world. This Henry Rotich was our cabinet secretary for treasury. That guy studied in Harvard. Most people, these people are very well learned. They know what they are doing. They are doing it for themselves. They are stealing without conscience. Unajua, hata kama unatuibia, tuibie kidogo tufanyie kazi. But absolutely nothing, zero. I went to another project called Thwake Dam. Thwake Dam is in Makueni. In this Thwake Dam, the shock of my life is that the contractor was paid 236 million extra. Not part of his bill of quantities, not part of the contract, not part of what he was supposed to pay. Hiyo ameongezewa. Hiyo ni kama ya ameongezwa tu 236 million. At hiyo ni interest for late payment. That is pending bills. Pending bills is out of public funds. It is deliberate. It is a problem created by politicians who occupy public office to steal Kenyans' money. Even on Nuno Modegashe Road, which is in Garissa, the contractor has been paid hiyo, yani just on top. Hiyo tumekuongeza tu hiyo. Shika hiyo. You go to Ministry of 1.4 million spent on an interview to hire an accountant, and they still never found an accountant out of that interview. Now, why should we even be spending money to hire an accountant yet we have a public service commission? We have a boardroom in the ministry funded by public resources. We have HR, deputy HR practitioners in the ministry, hired and paid by public resources, and we are still paying 1.4 million to look. Go to the e-citizen platform. You read the Auditor General's report for the financial year 2020. 10 billion paid on e-citizen platform can neither be confirmed nor denied. The government cannot say for sure whether it had the money or not. They are also shocked that it is missing. They are also shocked that the figures are different. You go to Ministry of Environment. Ministry of Environment is unable to explain how it spent 140 million shillings in one day to plant trees. You know, I'll be taking trees. Let's show you that there were no trees actually. Some of the trees were not even watered, they died. But 140 million a day? You go to Treasury, shillings withdrawn from Treasury to allegedly to buy shares for Africa Trade and Development Bank and shares for Africa Export-Import Bank, Exim Bank, and to buy shares Jamhuri Holdings Limited, ya Telcom. 12.5 billion was withdrawn from Treasury the way you withdraw money from M-Pesa. And it's lost. Nobody can account for it. Ati hata hizo banks zenye tulikuwa tunanunua shares kwao ati hawashiki simu. Imagine the Auditor General saying in the Auditor General's report that they could not be traced, at my attempts to reach them were unanswered, or they were uncooperative. You steal from us and you are uncooperative. Angalia, we paid an extra last year. We paid an extra 3.1 billion for fuel ati because ship ilichelewa kwa dock. Ati there was a ship that brought oil ikachelewa ku offload pale Mombasa. We paid what we call demurrage charges ya hiyo ship kuchelewa ya 3.1 billion. You know, for you to get to a billion, Kenyans, I don't know whether they understand what a billion is. Me, I've never seen a billion in my life. A billion is 1,000 millions. So when you talk about 3.1 billion, we are talking about 3,100 millions. It's money that you cannot keep in your bedroom unless you denominate it in dollars. You go to London, Kenyans in London, please tell me, our lease for the embassy and chancery building in London expired in 2021. We, the Kenyan people, loving you Kenyans in London, we didn't want you to suffer. We disbursed 1.6 billion in the financial year of 2021-2022 and 2022-2023, 1.6 billion in total for you to buy that building and own it so that it can belong to the Republic of Kenya. We are still paying 60 million shillings per year on rent we purportedly bought. You go to Pakistan, the capital city, Islamabad. We have a high commissioner's residence that we've already paid the contractor more than 400 million for that thing. Today, I was talking to the MP for Kisumu, Shakil Shabir. He told me he went to Islamabad. He was there. The only thing that is there is a wall. Ni ukuta ya 400 million yetu. My friends, it is time for you to realize that we are living in a crime scene. We are living in a setup. There is no intention for anybody in this executive to do anything in governance. Everybody is thinking about stealing. The one who has not stolen feels left out. If we don't reset the button on Kenya, if we don't flush it out, if we don't drain the swamp, if we do not close this crime scene for investigations and renovations, bwana, msifanye niwe naongea hii kitu kila siku. I will kasirika and go to State House myself. I will go to demonstrate alone because I'm tired and annoyed. But am I about to stop? Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm not about to stop. Today I was at KICC to attend an event called Okoa Uchumi, which is organized by the civil society. I'm supposed to be a speaker at that event. Then when I'm getting out of the washroom, I meet the spokesman of the government. Then we greet each other, nini. He tells me, we bana, mimi nahitaji namba yako tutaongea. Now, namba si kitu ya kunyima mtu juu, si dem, si ati ananikatia. Wakati nampea namba, cameraman wake ananipiga picha, so that you just know how desperate they are to say, tushalipa Morara. They will use bloggers. Corruption will fight back. They will use bloggers to discredit you. They will go look for your ex-girlfriend and what she can say about you. They will do everything. Corruption is evil. Evil must fight back. But me, I know, whenever you are dining with the devil in the dark, use a long fork. And I'm using a very long fork. And I'm not about to stop my visit for civic education. In fact, that is why I've cut down on my television interviews, because it's taking away the time that I would have used to be on the ground. From tomorrow, I'm resuming the Vampire Diaries Season 2. I'm bringing you a project by the government that is dead and buried and forgotten, and public resources is lost. Kesho, you stay awake to see it. The purpose of my videos is to provoke you. Yes, The purpose of my videos is to incite you, not to incite you to violence, but to incite you to take charge of civic matters. You are not too small to do something. Even if you have 10 followers, impact the 10. Get this message to your parents, get it to your friends, get it to your village mates. Tell them how corruption directly affects them. Do the little that you can in the space that you occupy, and together it will be a lot. You don't have to do as much as Eric Latif is doing. You may not be able to do as much as Bonnie Mwangi is doing. You may not be as able to do as much as Morara is doing. Some things are gifts and talents. But there is something you can do. And I want to tell the people in our country who are upper middle class and the rich, don't abandon the fight for change. The rich and the upper middle class in our country, mjue that you bear a very big burden because you are able. Wacha kuacha Gen Z wenye hawana hata pesa ya kujilipia cash bail, wao peke yao ndio wanahangaika huko kwa street kujaribu kuchallenge government. Kijana hata akishikwa apeleke kotini ambiwe cash bail ni 50,000, they can't afford. Akiambiwa cash bail ni 20,000, they can't afford. The parents at home have to sell a cow. These people are rich in our country who are the upper middle class. Do something. You as a lawyer, you as an engineer, you as an artist. Umejingangana umepata kakitu. Usiwachilia watu. Do what you can. If you can spare 1,000 bob, spare it. If you can spare 10 minutes, spare it. Invest time, invest money, invest your emotions. Let us get this thing done. We are out of time. The clock is ticking. We have very short time to do this. And if by some luck, this enterprise of criminals who call themselves a government get to 2027, my friend, if we vote them in, we will deserve everything they will do to us. If we
Thank
vote
you.
back these criminals and idiots, we will deserve every single thing they will do to us. We need an electorate that is awake and aware. That is why we must get this message to the villages. I was very happy when Kameme FM highlighted my story because I know the people that listen to Kameme. Najua kwamba mama mwenye ako huko ushago huko Kiriaine, mwenye ako kwa shamba ameweka redio pale kwa kona, anaendelea kulima shamba. That is the person we are reaching, so that we remove ignorance from our nation. Once we flush out ignorance, there will be no place for these evil people who have taken hostage of our country to hide. That is all I have to say.
Morara, thank you. Thank you very much. Very well said. And, the point of the conversation that we're having tonight is as we look into 14 years of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010, as it's known, let's remember that it places the supremacy of this Constitution in our hands as a people, as the citizens of the Republic. We are the sovereign. Then we have to stop operating as if we are the weaker side and beneficiaries of the Constitution, but that we own the Constitution. And that's why the preamble of the Constitution says that we give unto ourselves and our future generations this Constitution. So we have a big role in ensuring that this Constitution is implemented as we wrote it and as we passed it 14 years ago. Thank you very much, Morara. Morara has been our speaker. Morara is one of our speakers tonight for this conversation, which I'm hosting to say, as we get into 14 years, we are seeing a lot of awareness, more awareness and more civic engagement by the citizens, the ordinary citizens. This has previously been left to civil society actors who have been raising issues, and they're easily pushed aside by being told you're funded. Even now, those that have been active in the recent protests have started being dismissed one after the other, that no, they were funded, they were raising funds, they ate money, they raised millions of shillings, they misappropriated that money, they have no way of explaining how they spent that money. They're being dismissed and being broken down one by one that way. But what role do we have as citizens in ensuring that we get services from our government, that we implement our own constitution as we give unto ourselves? I now want to open the conversation to everybody who would like to contribute. You can request to be a speaker. I'm just going to give every speaker a maximum of 2 minutes to speak so we can pick as many as possible. Let's keep it to the role of citizens in pushing for accountability, in pushing for the realization of the ideals of this constitution. And let's hear from you. The first person I want to give the mic to is Josephine. Josephine Nganga, go ahead. 2 minutes, please. Josephine, we can't hear you. I can see you've unmuted your mic, but can anyone hear Josephine?
No, I can't hear Josephine.
Okay. So Josephine, will come back to you. Let's hear from Abdi. Abdi, over to you.
Thank you, Eric. You can hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for hosting the space again. I appreciate the presentation, though I find the stories from the speaker quite depressing, what we are going through. It's clear we have a long way to go before we can say we are truly free. We are not yet Uhuru. So as we commemorate these 14 years since the new 2010 constitution, we should have been a moment of pride. But instead, it has become one of the deep reflection and concerns and sorrow. The promise of our Katiba was to safeguard our rights, ensure accountability, build a society that has been compromised by, and build a just society. But what we have seen is a society compromised by those who have mutilated and weaponized this document to serve their interests rather than the people. People with questionable credentials are leading us in high office, in leadership, surrounded by an elite that benefit from the status quo and I would say patronism. Poor people remain the losers. They are back to default setting. You know, Eric, winning election was just the beginning. The real test is about governance. Leading a nation involves navigating complex issues, balancing diverse interests, implementing meaningful policies which go beyond political strategy and requires genuine problem solving and visionary leadership. It's not about forming a coalition or a broad-based government. The solution to Kenyan problem is not political. The economic problems is not political. So I would say the 2010 constitution was designed as a beacon of hope, a social contract between the government and the people, enshrining our rights and responsibilities. It was meant to guarantee the rule of law and protect human rights, ensure transparency, accountability. Instead, we witnessed deliberate erosion of these principles. The judiciary once has been a beacon of justice has often fallen short, appearing inept or unwilling to stand to those who undermine the rule of law. You know, corruption and impunity have taken root with those in power, acting above the law, you know, disregarding court orders, operating with blunt disregard for the principles of justice. It has become in many ways a banana republic where the rule of law is disregarded, those entrusted upholding instead trample on it. The constitution, which was meant to be our protector, is now being twisted and manipulated against us as a tool used to oppress, silence, and control any dissent. Eric, we have seen the rising incident of police brutality, enforced disappearance, abductions, the persistent disregard for court orders. The very institution meant to protect us are being used to instill fear and suppress dissent. I think we need the judiciary failure to accept its independence and enforce accountability has only, I think, those who seek to undermine our democracy and rule of law. I believe this is not what the framers of Constitution envisioned, and it is certainly not what Kenyans wanted. I think we are at a critical juncture where complacency is not an option. We must confront the reality of these abuses of power, demand an independent, courageous judiciary, insist on restoration of integrity in our institution, fight for truly democratic and just Kenya for everyone. I also think we must be vigilant, united, pushing back against those who seek to undermine our constitution. The accountability bar, I think, has been raised, but we must ensure it is met. I think the constitution is not just a legal document. It's a living, breathing contract that requires our our active defense and commitment. It is the cornerstone of our democracy and shield against tyranny. So I think as we reflect on these 14 years,
Yep.
I think let's recommit ourselves to the spirit of Katiba and to the relentless pursuit of justice, equality, and accountability for all Kenyans, as Mora and the rest are doing. I think Mora and Boni are doing an excellent job to do that. And I think we should also be part of this civic education. And I would say the Constitution still remains a beacon of hope, only if we defend it with the vigilance, courage, and unity it deserves. We cannot afford
Very
it
well said.
destroyed by those who swore to protect it. So I think we should still go. And thank you to the Speaker, Mora and Bongi, and hopefully Mongi will meet on Sunday. Thank you, Eric.
Asante. Thank you very much, Abdi. It's Morara, Abdi. It's not Mora. But thank you. Thank you for that contribution. Let's try you,
Thank
Josephine.
you for the correction.
Let's try Josephine again. Let's hear if we'll be able to get you this time. Josephine, you have the mic. Okay, so there's a problem with your connection or with your gadget, Josephine. We still can't get you. Keegan, you have the mic.
Thank you so much, Eric Latif, for this great space that you have given us today. I believe it touches on so many things. Sorry, I joined late because I was also not aware that it was going to be there, and I'm also traveling, so I just had to stop just to maybe give my input. So mine would probably be less than 2 minutes, as you have given us. Now, when we talk about accountability, those are some of the things that were brought up by the recent demonstrations by the Gen Z. But then we also had occasions whereby, people who believe for a good cause that the Gen Z originally stood for, and I supported, actually went ahead and, they started collecting money. Now, when we talk about accountability, Eric, we must ask ourselves why other people are not able to account for the monies that they themselves collected in order to cause for change. Now, when I talk about change, Eric, I talk about change that does not include anarchy. I talk about a constitution of 2010 that we said we shall review after 10 years. So when we cause anarchy to bring change, Eric, we go totally against what the spirit of the whole Gen Z was about, because I believe that is why most of us nowadays are on spaces, though some of us utilized this before it became popular. Now, as for my good friend Morara, I will call you a good friend because I have no enemies. I am at peace with everyone, even those that don't have the same ideals as me. You have talked about provoking. It is good. What you're doing is right, but I also believe that there are powers that are pushing you towards that direction. These powers may not necessarily be, committed to the change that we need as a country. Now, we had Gen Z generals. Yeah, I want to refer to them as Gen Z generals. The Gen Z generals, we know them, and we know that they had their few minutes of fame. So others will also have theirs before it is done. So my good brother Morara, I see you're a lawyer. I'm only getting to know more about you now. Please remember, before you there were many. After you, I do not know how many will be left. But please let us do things in a structured manner, in a way that also brings Kenyans together. Yes, civil education is good, but please let us do it in a better manner.
Keegan, what better manner would you propose?
You see, I see the way that they try to do things is, first of all, when there was public participation, Eric, I expected that the same people that wanted to shoot down the finance bill would actually be part and parcel of those talks. Why do I say this? Every one of us, Eric, even on your shows, you would highlight these things even on social media, you'd highlight these things. How is it that they, the Gen Z, never came as a group to participate in this? So now the better way is this: you cannot be leaderless, you cannot be formless, tribeless, and whatever less. Okay, sit down with the leaders of the day, because those are the ones who are chosen and anointed by God. And remember what the Bible says: if you go against those that He has chosen, then there shall be repercussions.
I want
All
to
right.
say something.
Oh, yeah, I want to give you Morara opportunity here to right of reply, because Keegan says maybe you're acting under the guidance of some other powers.
I want to tell again that I'm acting on my own behalf, and yes, I'm supported by Kenyans. Kenyans that support me, not all of them I'm sure about their character. There are people that support me who they themselves have their own issues or their own questions, their own questionable characters. You see, when you're in a political mind, you don't get to choose who supports you. I don't pick and choose my supporters. I'll be supported even by criminals. For me, the bigger picture is, where are we headed? Now, you say we need to have structured engagement, and I am telling you that there's no structured engagement you can have with a thief that has stolen your money. The only thing they can do ni kukupanga, kukucheza na kukupigisha vipindi. There is no other engagement you're going to have with them, because they don't come to the engagement with clean hands. They come to the engagement to try and shut down your movement, or to try and bring you down for trying to question them on accountability for money that they've stolen from you. There's no conversation you can have with them, because what will this conversation look like? Will we be telling these corrupt politicians to return our money that has been stolen? Do you think that is a kind of a conversation we can have, that sasa tumeamua tuketi chini tuongee, hii pesa mmetuibia sini mingi, tuna request kama mnaweza rudisha kidogo? That's nonsense. It cannot work in any believable way. The other thing is, you talk about moments of fame. Well, I don't think fame is important. I believe that everybody, famous or not famous, should do the little that they can do. But you should not be annoyed or jealous if somebody else is famous. Remember, this thing comes, and it does not come. Sometimes it comes to people that don't even want it. Some of us, we didn't even wish to be famous, because now I'm living a life that I didn't want to live. Cannot go to a hotel and have tea. I cannot walk on a corridor without pictures of me being taken. So I'm not really happy about the fame, but I'm glad that now I have a bigger platform and a bigger following to continue championing for issues of better governance and an end to corruption. So
Thank you.
please do not be cheated to believe that everybody does something for fame. Some of us actually do these things because we care. And it's not that before we started doing these things, we had nothing to do. We were actually very busy with our lives and had things to do. So the last thing I want to tell you is, stop weaponizing religion. That bullshit of telling us that people have been chosen by God is utter nonsense, and it belongs in the dustbin. Because the only way Kenya was colonized is because people came here with a Bible telling us that they've brought us the word of God. That is the same weaponization of religion which people are using when actually churches are laundering money for politicians. You find a church owning a helicopter, a church owns a beach road on behalf of a politician. God did not choose for us thieves. We are the ones who elected these thieves. We are the ones suffering the consequences of these thieves, and we are trying to find a way getting rid of these pieces of shit that have made a shithole out of our.
Enough, Morara. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you for
thank you,
that.
thank you
And
so
Keegan,
much,
thank you as well
Morara. I
for your
have heard
comments.
you. Eric, also thank you. I may need to go to the listeners now, because I will not be able to take part in any further conversation, because, as I said, I was traveling.
Asante.
I believe Morara will have another chance to have a conversation. Eric, thank you so much, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Asante. Thank you, Keegan, and thank you for joining the conversation. Yes, we'll take all. I mean, we are talking about our constitution, and our constitution says let's engage. And so it's important for all of us to engage engage respectfully, and engage on all matters. The next person I want to give the mic to is Anthony Murati. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Latif. Thank you, Morara, for the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you very much for this space. Now, I'll go straight to my talking point. Number one, it's time for accountability, and the fact that people in government are not asking themselves the very pertinent question: if our leadership is so good, what has made Kenyans so woke about governance right now? If you want to know you're doing a bad job, it's when people start realizing how bad your job is until it becomes a national conversation. Now, the fact that instead of this government reacting to what Morara is doing and ask Morara, okay, this is what Morara is saying. Is it true? Yes. Can you call these people to account? What are they doing? They want to sit down and defend a totally absurd and stupid defense of defending the indefensible. There are things as a government we should not defend. Okay, those are just things. Like when I hear Kigen here trying to compare, I don't know, the president to he came from God. No, God did not vote. We voted for him, and that's why we are holding him accountable. And to refer to the same Bible, when Saul fell out of favor with God, he appointed people like Morara. And the same Saul treated Morara the same way people want to dismiss Morara. My next answer: who has given Morara this job? It is we, the Kenyans, who have appointed him. We have appointed him and given him that duty to go and tell us this is not working, that is, and we support him for that. Him and other millions and millions of Kenyans are having this conversation today. And if work was so good, this conversation will not be happening. Lastly, Mr. Latif, Kenyans have organized themselves, and I'll say it here today to all the 1,000 listeners here. Some of us in our spaces, I co-host with Andrew Tibe every day on X. Kenyans have organized themselves on Telegram. We have a group that is over 1,000 members strong, structured in a very organized way, from people in diaspora to fundraising to organizing at people who are looking at how can we reconstitute this constitution, what clauses do we need to look at. We have lawyers on that panel, doctors, engineers, everything. That is how bad governance makes people. It makes people come together, identify their strengths, and start looking for a way to save themselves. We have a WhatsApp group that is big, and we are still trying to organize for better governance. And let me tell this government one thing. 2027, that battle will be fought online, on WhatsApp, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on the ground. That is what they are not seeing. And it will hit them in a way they have never been hit before. Because let me tell you, Eric, the only space they
Anthony,
can't miss is on this one. Thank you, Lati.
Thank you, Anthony. Next speaker, Miriam. Mariam, you have the mic. Wairimo Mariam.
Yes, thanks a lot, Eric. I hope you're doing well. I do have a quick question. Yeah, thanks. I do have a quick question for Morara. It was very interesting to hear him run through the counties and some of the ghost projects that are being done and what is being quantified as development. So my question was, who advises the counties, rather who quantifies what is termed as development in the counties? Who's responsible for that, Morara? That was my question, actually, Latif. And where is this information found? Thank you.
Thank you. I think, Mariam, the best person to respond to that will be Bonnie, who's been looking at those counties.
Sorry, Bonnie was speaking. Yes.
Yeah,
sorry,
Bonnie is here. Bonnie, you can respond to that.
Happy to answer that. So the question you're asking is a very important question. And there's no law, there's no guidelines that tells these people what's development. I mean, the idea is used your common sense, right? To me, the premise of development is we are equipping the people with the ability to attract investment. You are basically setting up the county for growth, right? So things like infrastructure, things like communication networks, things like roads, right? Things like utilities that are there, power, things like that. But when you really look at these counties and the way they're spending your money, oftentimes they change things at the end just to make sure that they fit into the law. So, for example, I've seen counties where they buy fertilizer, right? And they might call it recurring expenditure, but then at the end of the fiscal year, when they see that it's going to be over 70%, all of a sudden they call it, development. I was just going over the example of the county of Siaya, right? You cannot tell me that building or fencing offices for the MCAs is development. That's not, you're not developing anything, right? When you spend money digging boreholes, right? When you spend money building offices for your politician, that's not development. And if you want to look at, if you really want to get an idea of what we are doing with people's money, just look at a county like Turkana, right? Over the last 10 years, Turkana has received 100 billion shillings from you and I, because that county can only raise 1% of its budget. 1%. So you send 100 billion, and then you look at that county at the end of 10 years and you say, how much development do we have? Have we seen an improvement in terms of literacy rates, in terms of access to healthcare, in terms of schools, in terms of basic services? Almost non-existent. Roads are not there. And you look at a county like Turkana, they can only raise 1% of the 100 billion in investment. They can only raise 1% of their budget. They can only support themselves for 3 days out of the year, right? And when you look at even what they call own source revenue, 50% is from market charges, 25% is from slaughterhouse fees. I mean, what are we doing? How do you invest 100 billion to end up collecting money from a slaughterhouse? Does any of you want to have a $100 billion shilling slaughterhouse? So it's not just saying we need 30%. We need to actually put people into office that knows what it means to develop a country, right? Again, I go back to my point is that 90% of these issues can be fixed by putting the right people into office. If you put in someone there who's not serious about development, you're gonna end up with the situation that we have right now on our hands.
Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, and I'm sure you've responded to that question. There are very many other comments also on the comment section. And please continue here so we can continue with this conversation everywhere. DJ Blizzy says, it's not like I'm inciting anyone to violence, as Morara has said, but we have got to fight for our children, and if not for us, and making sure that we get the right accountability from our leaders. I'm seeing a lot of people saying that the president is clueless. Please alert everyone that this is a manipulation tactic. He's aware of what he's doing. Accountability is a key. That's what Samsung is saying. We need to start involving youth in a mass voters card registration and push for a new party. Will make us occupy every seat in 2027. That's Mawira Nick. The conversation continues there. If you'd like to speak, raise a hand or request. I'm going to give you the mic to speak. 2 minutes, please. Juliet, you are up next.
Oh, thank you so much, Latif, and thank you to Morevi Anthony for telling me about your platform. Great to be in this platform listening to citizen accountability. And I want to appreciate Senior Counsel Morala and, of course, all the other key speakers who are speaking. Mine is just short. I'm listening from London here today as a Kenyan diaspora. But let me tell you, singeweza kufikiria that itakuja siku ambayo Kenyan sisi tutataka kufight corruption. And that is beautiful. And I want to celebrate all the efforts that Kenyans are making. And in particular, I want to celebrate the Gen Zs and all the platforms such as this. But I also want to inspire you with a quote here today. Corruption destroys humanity and kindness. And I'll repeat that. Corruption destroys humanity and kindness. And I wrote that a few years back because I felt that is something that is really destroying our country. And so I'm really delighted to just be part of this program, to listen to all the efforts. And it is we Kenyans and every one of us took on a responsibility to fight all what is happening in our country at every level, at every space, and ensure that we bring our country back. Asanteni.
Thank you, Juliet. The Real Joe, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Latif, for the space and for having this forum so we can be able to engage. So mine will be very quick today. For me, I don't want to really say that our constitution is 14 years old. probably because for me, I don't think it's a baby that was born, has not been brought up properly, and therefore the baby is malnourished. The baby is supposed to be 14 years old, but still looks like a very small child, like a baby. And therefore, we cannot say it is 14 years old. So we still need a lot of work to do. Having said that, one of the very, very fundamental things, and I draw this from the preamble of the Constitution, is if you look at the preamble of the Constitution, it talks about a government that recognizes the values of human rights, equality, freedom, democracy, social justice, and rule of law. This is where we're getting it wrong, completely. We're getting it wrong from just the very, very fundamental aspects that our Constitution was driving. You look at a leadership that is very, very selfish, making decisions for their own interest and not for the interest of Mwananchi. And just like Morara has said, we are in a crime scene. We are not in a country. We might even say we are in a failed state. If I look at the news every day, I'm shocked. There's an MP trying to bring in an act to limit people trying to exercise Article 37. And I look at this as an assault to the Constitution. Someone who doesn't understand the history of our Constitution and the history of protests in our Constitution and what protests have been able to make us achieve in our country, including even the repeal of Section 2A, then you see that this is a leadership that is only pushing its own agenda. And we have to put an end to this madness. And therefore, I thank the people like Morara who are currently doing civic. We are calling it civic education. I'm going to call this civic evangelism. We are spreading the civic gospel. And therefore, this is the best way to do it. We are winning the information war.
Thank you.
We need to continue pushing. And this is how we get as I wish. Harriet Tubman in one of her sayings said that I would have freed 1,000 more if only they knew they were slaves. Let us ensure that people know that they are slaves so that we can free them from this slavery. Thank you very much, Latif.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you very much. 2 minutes, Grace Olwande.
Thank you for the... Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Grace.
Yes, thank you for the mic. I think I have 3 issues to address. First of all, I want to thank Morara for the good work he's doing, but I've just seen a post. He was with the government spokesman, so I hope he'll clarify that as well. But as I continue,
he has already clarified, Grace.
If we look at education sector, teachers are not paid well. To an extent, the government has not released the medical cover for teachers. So if generally we look at teaching, at education in general, it looks like buying yourself a Range Rover, and you know very well you cannot afford to maintain the Range Rover, you cannot afford to fuel it, and that is what is happening in our education sector. This system of education, I think the government was trying to implement it, but again, because it is very expensive, the government is not in a position to establish it. Because if we have schools, children learning under the tree, and we want to implement CBC, that actually needs practical work most of the time, and also more teachers with less students in the classroom, then it means that this system, actually, it's a charade. It's not working. That is number one on this education sector. Number two, if you check the newspaper of yesterday, it is said that most of NHIF workers, managers, don't have a Form 4 certificates. And the ones that have a Form 4 certificate, they are forged. So you can see the kind of regime we are dealing with, which cannot even respect the aspect of education as equalizer, and also does not give people who really deserve to be there opportunities to be there to lead or to work. Last but not least, I also want to talk about where Kenya has to pay 14 billion extra in pipeline construction deal. This is when Treasury failed to release the money that was supposed to be compensated to the people who gave their land to the government, and the contractor is charging around 2 point something million each and every day. So as much as we want this accountability, the first sector that we should be attacking is the treasury, and they should be telling us why are they not releasing money on time. That is first question that we should be asking them. Secondly, when they fail to release money, like the way I saw it last week is when they were releasing 30 billion shillings to the counties. So it means right now we have a constitutional crisis and the treasury cannot really account for our money. So those are the questions that we should be asking ourselves. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. Thank you very much for that input. Chris, you have the mic for 2 minutes.
Hello, good evening.
Go ahead.
Hope you're seeing me. Hope you can hear my voice. Okay. First of all, I want to thank Morara, I want to thank Boni, and I want to thank you, Latif. You know, we are at a point where, as a country, we were given two options that were not good for us. I didn't vote for Ruto, I voted for Raila. But over the course of the last 2 years, I've realized he wasn't an option for us. I don't regret it, but I want people to take this issue with civil education so serious, because we have reached a point where the corruption in this country is at a level that you can't imagine. Nothing is working. I believe every country has its own issues, but at the moment you audit every county. I have been going through the books of Auditor General's report regarding Busia County, where I come from. You can see how people, or I'll say organized crime on public finances happens. People are just stealing day in, day out. There is no report that you will find that is clear. Every report has issues. Money can't be accounted for, and yet we are paying taxes for it. Every individual now getting out from school, be it in a college, be it in an university, be it in a TVET institution, there is no work, and that is the reality. And anybody getting work, it is the payment is pathetic. You can't keep up with providing for yourself. I remember another MP in Tanzania was talking about issue of ministers and government telling people to employ themselves. Aliuliza swali simple, wewe mwenyewe uko na miaka 40, umerudi kwa wananchi wa kuandike kazi, umekampeni ukashinda kura. Hao vijana wa miaka 20, miaka 18 unawaambia wajiandike wenyewe, watoe wapi hiyo uwezo ya kujiandika kama wewe mwenyewe ulifikisha miaka 40 na ulishindwa kujiandika kazi? So the reality is...
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Thank you. Let's leave it there, so we can take as many comments and participants as possible, so we can continue this conversation. More, Robert, you have the next 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, mine is just to thank you, Morara. Keep doing the Lord's work. Unafanya kazi nzuri sana. Don't listen to those who are against you. Keep on doing that job. Is very important. Right now, we know where our money is, where our money goes in form of being stolen. But the key thing about Katiba at 14 is that we started on the wrong foot. You see, from 2013 when we our general election, that's when this constitution was supposed to come in full force. After 10 years, we revive it. But what happened is that we put people into office, the president and deputy president, who violated the 2010 Constitution, Chapter 6, to get into power. So if I come to your home now, Eric, if I come to your home, I get you are not there, I break the door and I go to your fridge, I get a drink, I sit down, I start drinking. And when you come in, you don't say anything. There is something wrong with me, definitely. So how did you expect Uhuru and Ruto, who violated Chapter 6 of the Constitution, to respect this Constitution? And that's why you see from 2013 until today, this constitution is being violated right, left, center. People with integrity issues, people who are corrupt, the DPP who are supposed to be independent is being tossed around like a toy. He's being told, release this, Kamata, who you name it. There you are. So until we get somebody who is ready to implement the 2010 Constitution, we are going nowhere. Hata nimalizia hapo, lakini don't expect anything. Expect Kenya to continue getting into deeper into poverty, into debt and everything until we get somebody who is ready to tackle corruption head on and to respect the 2010 Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to give a few moments to Bonnie Mwangi to speak to us because Bonnie has to drop off and get onto other engagements. Bonnie, what would you say is your exit remark, and then we shall extend this. I hope, Morara, you can stay with us for another 20 minutes so you can hear few more people. Bonnie?
Yeah, can you... Hello?
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead,
Okay,
Bonnie.
thank you. My parting message for Kenyans is this, and I said this before, right? The time for passive citizenship is over. We have for a long time, in my view, left governing to, I'm just going to call it like it is, clowns and thieves. We need to get involved, because if we don't get involved, we end up in a situation like the one that we have on our hands. It's a serious issue. We need to fix our country, and we're not going to fix our country by having the same people that have put us there fix it, right? Right now, the reason why we have 11 trillion in debt is because our parliament has not stepped up and made sure that they hold the executive branch accountable. You cannot raise debt by 450% when you can't show that you have the ability to service that debt. We need to get involved. We need to make sure that we're choosing the right people in office, and we need to hold them accountable. Do not be a passive citizen. That doesn't work anymore. Thank you for the opportunity, Eric, and everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Bonnie, and I hope to engage with you again soon and in the future just to highlight the issues that you've been raising. Keep doing the good work. I'm sure everybody will clap. Anybody who's able to clap for Bonnie as he leaves, just go ahead and put up that emoji, clap for him and say, Asante Sana. Keep doing the good work that you're doing, Bonnie. We are behind you. We are supporting you. We are waiting to consume all the information that you churn out for us. Keep doing that. Asante Sana. Ndinda, you have the mic for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Latif. I think my submission is very simple. At this point, I feel like we should extend this civic education to civic participation as well. Because my feeling is that, for the longest, Kenyans have just been participating through voting. And it's for the very first time that we are seeing that the process of governance is more than just voting. I mean, it's just with this protest that I can see a lot of us Kenyans are becoming aware of things like how can we recall our MPs. So I think going forward, we need to understand how we can participate through provisions in the constitutions in the process of governance. Like at the end of voting, that's not where things end. Then the second thing I would speak about is the translation of the constitution, because I don't think everyone truly understands it. And when I say translation, I don't mean like languages. I just mean like illustrating it in a way that the masses can understand it. When you look at what Morara is doing, for example, it's translating what corruption means to the masses so that in the